Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov Chess Channel and welcome to an incredible game of the Global Chess League tournament in 2023. We have here the clash of the titans. We have here a beautiful battle between Nepo and Magnus. So of course it's a repetition of the former World Chess Championship, but today they have to play a rapid game, 50 minutes on the clock plus 10 seconds increment. The game finished a couple of minutes ago. In my opinion, a really incredible epic game. So let's see now what happened with the white pieces. Nepo opened with the move e4, Magnus responds with c5 the Sicilian, c3 the Alpine with the idea to break and enter with the move d4, and Magnus keeps the further control around the square d4. So knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4, hitting the pawn on f7, knight to f6, and now comes a very common attack from white's perspective, targeting of course the f7 weakness. So Magnus covers this diagonal with the move d5. We have e takes d5, knight to d5, and now an interesting choice by Nepo with the move d4. You could maybe play queen to f3, but this can be protected with this idea, queen to g5. Okay, maybe you are hitting now the center, and also now you're attacking the knight and also maybe the pawn on f7, but this is defendable with the move queen to g6. So see, we have now covered also the c6 square, but also the f7 square. If you play something like bishop to c6, b takes c6 with the bishop here, I think black should be slightly better here. So that's why here Nepo goes with d4, a very beautiful gambit line, because after c takes d4, of course, we don't want to take out the pawn immediately. Now Nepo continues the pressure on this diagonal by playing to move queen to b3. We have bishop to e6, the only way to defend this position, which of course Nepo uses now, knight to e6, f takes e6, and now Magnus has now this double pawn structure, but has fixed now the position around the square d5 because the knight was of course loose. So from this point on, okay, Magnus took the pawn. Magnus has now a structural weakness, this double pawn structure in the center of the board, but of course Nepo has now the bishop pair and has now also beautiful attacking chances. So we have now queen takes b7 by Nepo. So you see the pawn on b7 is taking, the queen in this types of position gets a little bit exposed because okay, you took the pawn, but then afterwards of course Magnus could maybe can kick away the queen with some activities, and Magnus plays a normal line, rook to c8. We have kingside castling, and Magnus is saying, okay, I had enough of this tactical battle, I want to reach the fully endgame stage. My knight is good in center of the board, my knight on c6 is also perfectly fine, I have a good bishop, rook is also on an active file, so that's why training off the queen, simplifying game, I think it's a good choice by Magnus. But of course Nepo doesn't want to do that. Nepo has the bishop here, Nepo has created weaknesses, Nepo is targeting some new weaknesses in positions, tries to simply stay with more pieces on the board, tries of course to complicate the game further. So bishop to e7, we have now bishop to b3, kingside castling, queen to e6 by Nepo, and now after move knight to a5, bishop to d1 by Nepo. So you see Magnus is trying again just to further simplify the game, but Nepo is trying to keep the pieces on the board. So now rook from f to d8 by Magnus, and now Nepo makes maybe his first tiny inaccuracy. He plays the move bishop to f3. It makes sense of course to keep the pressure around the square d5, but there was a better choice, simply playing the move queen to h3, because for instance if you play something like f6, then we have this one, knight to d2, you take, but now after something like b takes c3, knight to b7, we can now include the bishop into the game, again targeting this weakness like this. Or if you for instance play the move d takes c3, then we play knight takes c3, and after knight takes c3, we don't want to take out now the knight again with the move b takes c3. First we play bishop to g4, because if you play of course knight to b takes c3, then you get this one, even queen to d1 would be a possibility, so it's not working. Now we play first bishop to g4 instead of this move d takes c3, hitting the pawn on e6. Now you have to protect it, and now only now we pick up now the knight, and I think this is now perfect position for the bishop pair. Many targets here in black's camp. The bishop will come into the game in one moment, rook will be included into the game, this rook will be also included into the game. So although this is defendable, the knight, we have to say, is also good here, maybe on the square c4, but I think this will be a more comfortable position for the bishop pair. Bishop to f3, first really inaccuracy here by Nepo. So Magnus continues here, again the simplification idea, b takes c3, we have knight takes c3, knight takes c3, you see queen to d7, queen to rook takes d7, b takes c3, and mission accomplished. We have here also this idea, rook takes c3, and okay, for instance the engine says this is perfect. This is a playable position for both sides. This is a drawish position, but we have to say Magnus grabbed the pawn, and although these are double pawns, I still don't kind of like this pawn on a2, and also the lack of development of the first rank. Meanwhile, Magnus pieces I think are more active, although as we said, Nepo has the bishop here. Nepo will eventually complicate the game, but without the queens on the board, I think there's simply not so many attacking chances now for white. So if white and black, I think, play now the game correctly, this should be a drawish position for sure. So bishop to b2 by Nepo. So we have rook to c5. Magnus protects now his expert pawn. We have now rook from a to d1. Rook takes d1. Rook takes d1, and now knight to c4. The power of the simple threat, simply trying to complicate things, forcing of course your opponent to react and not to act. So we have bishop to c3, and now a nice move here by Magnus, really nice touch here, e4, because if you play now bishop to e4, then you get this one, knight to d6. You could maybe of course complicate the game with bishop to b4. Both of these pieces are hanging now. It's the only way here, bishop to b4, but now knight to e4, bishop takes c5, bishop takes c5 leads I think into a complicated game for white. In this scenario, I think this should be a completely winning endgame here for Magnus. So that's why after move e4, here Nepo didn't fall for this. He played simply bishop to d4. If you play now bishop to after bishop to d4, here we have rook to a5. Magnus Carlsen steps back now, and after bishop to e4, rook takes a2. Again, I think a more playable position for black. Magnus has now undoubled sort of his pawns. He lost the pawn on e4, but the pawn was weak anyway. On the other hand, Magnus took now the outside or the distant pass pawn, and with the support of the bishop, with the support of the knight, of course, Magnus is hoping to get some kind of an attacking chance. He's hoping now, I think, also to get the win. Again, the engine gives here equal chances for both sides because of the power of the bishop here, but this was, I think, not such a good trade here for Nepo going in this kind of an endgame. But okay, Nepo fights with the move g3. We have knight to d2, hitting now the pawn. We have bishop to c6, a5. Normal idea here by Magnus. King to g2, king to f7, bishop to c3, knight to c4, keeping the knight very active. After moving rook to d7, now Magnus plays a beautiful move, knight to e3. If you go, of course, here to the back rank, there are even in some lines some back rank checkmate threat with rook to c1, rook to c2, rook to c1. So it's also something that should be discussed. So that's why here Nepo played king to f3, and now Magnus goes with this idea, rook to a3, attacking also the bishop, but also if you, for instance, move the bishop, then there are some, of course, discovered check possibilities. So that's why Nepo went in this line, bishop to b2, attacking the rook. Magnus attacked now the bishop again. Nepo took now finally the knight on e3, and after rook to b2, still nothing lost for white because we have now the opposite color bishop's endgame. But okay, this is fast time format. Magnus has now an extra pawn. Still have to play now the perfect moves in order to stay in the game, and we know how Magnus is playing this kind of endgame. This is now a perfect position for such a beast like Magnus. So Nepo goes for this line, rook to a7, attacking now the pawn in a5. Magnus grabs now this one. Nepo also grabs now this one. It seems that nothing can go wrong. At least Nepo got rid of this annoying passer on the a file, but now Magnus pushes this position with move h5. Good move, I think, restricting this king's ability to play. If the king gets active, maybe through this squares, then white could maybe defend his position. And now Nepo, after move rook to a6, bishop to d6, and bishop to b5, discovers it. Here we have a discovered attack against the bishop. King to e7, and now the fun starts. Now we have reached really the critical position of the game. Now Nepo makes maybe his first big mistake in the game, bishop to c4. And in my opinion, when I first analyzed the game, it seemed to me nothing wrong with this move. Why should this be such a mistake? Of course, we are attacking simply the weakness on e6. Nothing can happen. But now Magnus found the ultimate beautiful move with the move g5. simply pushing the position now to the limits here, so simply trying to create a passer. And notice this passer will eventually be also supported with the bishop, also supported with the rook. The bishop is a little bit loose on the board, and from this point on, I think Magnus is slowly but surely taking over in the game. A better choice instead of this move bishop to c4 Nepo was to play rook to a7 after king to f6, bishop to e8, keeping the pieces more active. Now the rook can go behind with rook to f7, rook to g7. Magnus would have also many tactical problems in the position in this particular line. Bishop to c4, simply too passive, although it seems like an attacking move, but Magnus takes out over now with the move g4, and as we said, is now supporting the potential progress here on the king side. We have rook to we have now the move e4, another tiny little inaccuracy here by Jan Nepomniachtchi. Again, king to e4. This was the last chance for Nepo to somehow, as we said, activate the king. The king is supposed to play in endgames. This was really not the best of moves, because after e4, again, the bishop is a little bit loose. Here we have bishop to a2, and now Magnus actually played a tiny little inaccuracy. I would not say it's a mistake, because black is still better here, but there was now a beautiful idea, which unfortunately for the beauty of the game, Magnus Carlsen missed. Magnus should have simply proceeded with this idea, bishop to c5. This would be an epic, really epic move, because look at this. With the move rook to f2, we are threatening even a checkmate with the king in the center. Really wild stuff. Magnus missed it. For instance, let's see possible continuation. Of course, white is not losing the game immediately, but in order to create some breathing spaces, you have to play the move e5. But now look at this, rook to f2, king to e4, another check, and you have to now step back from the defense of the pawn. Now we can take the pawn on e5. It's a lost game, I think, here for white. If you play after move bishop to c5, something like rook takes e6, it doesn't bring you anything, because here after move king to d7, still the same threat remains, and now also your bishop is hanging on a2, and of course the bishop is the key protector of the rook. So from this point on, also lost game here for white. Magnus missed, unfortunately, the chance immediately. Played now the move rook to c5, but staying in the game. Here we have king to e3, h4, g takes h4, g takes h4. As promised, Magnus created him a very annoying passer to handle. We have rook to a7, king to f6. Now Nepo goes behind the pawn, and now Magnus simply pushed the pawn further. If you take, of course, then rook to c3 is, of course, taking the rook on the third rank. So we have king to d4, we have rook to c2, attacking now the bishop, bishop to e6, and now first this idea, bishop to e5. Very nice move, very nice endgame move by Magnus Carlsen, because if you take now the bishop immediately, then of course Nepo will take out this pawn, and in a rook versus bishop, rook and bishop versus rook endgame, it's a theoretical draw. So that's why Magnus recognized this problem, played first bishop to e5, which is a good choice. Again, another check. The king has to now step back from the defense of the bishop, but now Magnus simply pushed the pawn further and created again very specific endgame pattern here. So in the game, bishop to g4, we have a rook to f2, rook to h3, and now king to g5. And now again, it's tricky. Look how Magnus is playing this wild endgames. For instance, let's see one possibility. You step back here to e6, then rook to c2 you can play. You can of course play something like this, but now we're maybe forcing the trades of rooks. You have to step back after something like rook to c7. Again, we would love, of course, to simplify the game by trading off the rooks and then push the pawn here on the h file. Again, maybe rook to h3, rook to c3. So you don't want to play maybe a perpetual after rook to h7. Now bishop to g3 is very interesting, with the idea to play then bishop to h4, and then cutting off the connection between here the rook and the pawn. So it's still tricky. Probably survivable here for white, but after move king to g5, Nepo plays now the move bishop to f3, and now Magnus uses this moment and deflects now the rook From the defense of this h file, we have rook takes f3. Magnus promotes now to queen, and now rook to f5 here by Nepo. He grabs now here the pawn on e5, but still, in my opinion, this is now completely winning endgame here for black, because we have to say it in these types of structures, when the king is far away, we can of course include the king into the game. We will eventually also include the queen into the attack, so it's also a thematic simply win here for black. But of course, Nepo decided to fight this endgame. After rook e5, Magnus simply get the king closer, included of course the queen into the attack, simply again went behind, delivered a couple of checks, and now have to again somehow find your path for the king. So Nepo goes with king to c6, Magnus cut off again the king's ability to go towards the center. We have king to d6, and now finally Magnus includes the king more actively into the game. We have king to e7, now a new check, again a new check, king to c5, Magnus activates again the king further. We have king to d7, queen to f7, you have to now cover, and now Magnus simply again restricts the king's ability to go further to the center. We have again a new check here by Magnus. We have again a new check. Now when the king is far away, again Magnus simply played sort of a Zugzwang move, forcing basically now Nepo to make a move, because after check, after rook to e7 attack against the queen, we have queen to g6 a check. Here we have king to f8 by Nepo, and now again Magnus gets the king closer. We have e5, king to d5, e6, again the king gets closer and closer to the position. Nepo attacks the queen, but now after move queen to f6, rook to f7, a new check by Magnus Carlsen, and finally the game is over. After king to g7, Magnus finally grabs now this pawn, and there are no good checks that are possible. Nepo is fighting somehow a new check by Magnus Carlsen, attacking the rook. You can maybe deliver a check, but then after king to f6 you don't have good checks, so that's why Nepo tried to keep the rook close to the king, but it doesn't matter. Queen to h5, we have now a new check. King to f6, again no checks, no good checks of course by the rooks are possible. So in this position Jan Nepomniachtchi resigns. So great game by Magnus Carlsen with the black pieces to play the game like this. Almost perfect game by Magnus Carlsen. I think he could have finished also the game earlier, but this is the position that he wants to get. Really cool endgame techniques by the world champion, former world champion, sorry about that, but we have to say it, when it comes to endgames, Magnus Carlsen is really the greatest of all time. So okay, I hope you did enjoy this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas for sure in the Alpen variation of the Sicilian defense. If you want to maybe see more comments and chess games here on my YouTube chat channel, here's the link of our playlist, and if you want to maybe watch some top engine games, you can also check out my best chess games played by computers. Here's also the link of our playlist, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.